All right. Hey, what's up, good people? I'm QC. Welcome to the Talking and Grubbing live stream. How's everybody doing? Hope all y'all doing good. I'm doing good. Excuse me. Excuse me. Now, I'm here to recap the final 2 episodes of The Last Dance, which aired last night. The last 2 episodes were pretty good. And I didn't know this until about a week or two ago that they had just finished completing 2 episodes. So while the other episodes were airing, the last 2 episodes were still being, edited and completed. So those episodes were basically fresh off the press. Y'all also stay tuned at 8 o'clock as me and Jay Moore Reviews will be doing a live stream recapping the whole series. He's a Bulls fan, diehard Bulls fan. He's gonna share some of his memories from that era and the whole Bulls dynasty. So as y'all coming into the live stream, make sure you hit the like button. If this is your first time here on this channel, welcome. Just make sure it's not your last. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell and click all so you don't miss any new videos from me. And so now let's get into the recap of the final 2 episodes of The Last Dance. Let's start with episode 9. Now, episode 9 started with the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals between the Bulls and the Pacers. Excuse me. Now, coming into this series, this series was, well, as Michael Jordan put it, he felt that series was very personal for him, which I don't know why. I guess because of the Larry Bird factor. Since, Larry Bird used to put him out of the playoffs all the time, every year. So, this was Jordan's way to finally knock off Larry Bird. Since he couldn't knock him off as a player, like, he could eliminate his team as a coach. So, game 1 was definitely highly contested, of course, because people forget that Pacers team was a pretty good team. The Bulls held on to win. Well, matter of fact, Bulls held on to win a close one in that game 1. Matter of fact, the first 2 games were close. And then, game 3, which is now deemed one of the most classic playoff games, came down to the wire as Reggie Miller hit the go-ahead shot as Scottie Pippen missed both free throws in the waning seconds to, extend the Bulls' lead. So the Pacers got, the Bulls tried to get that rebound, but they lose it out of bounds. So Larry Bird calls a play, and Reggie Miller steps up and hits the shot. But then the Bulls still had a little bit of time left, and Reggie Miller said in his interview that he felt that it was going in when Michael Jordan attempted that shot, but it rattled in and out, and the Pacers got back into the series. Then they won game 4 very close. My mistake. That game 4 is where, Reggie Miller hit the 3, not game 3. My mistake. And then the Bulls came back to Chicago and won game 5. Then the Pacers won a close game 6 to force game 7. Now, game 7, the Pacers had came out firing on all cylinders. They were even up by as many as double digits at one point, but the Bulls kept on fighting. But it wasn't really Michael making the run, that got the run started. It was cats like Scottie Pippen and especially Steve Kerr when he hit some big, big threes late in the game to, get the Bulls inching closer and also to finally take the lead. But before the documentary started, Reggie Miller recalled how, he and Michael Jordan, when they first played against each other, Reggie Miller was in his rookie year, his second year in the NBA, and he was just talking mad trash to Michael. Talking about, because Michael had missed a lot of shots, a lot of close shots during the game, and he was talking about how he couldn't shoot and all this, that, and the other. And then Jordan started hitting some shots in a row, and he ultimately ended up beating Indiana. So Reggie Miller said he never talked trash to Michael Jordan again. He called it, matter of fact, he says he doesn't even call him Michael Jordan. He either calls him, that black cat or Black Jesus. He said he doesn't even address him as Michael anymore. And also, it flipped back to, episode flashback to the 97 NBA Finals against the Utah Jazz. The Jazz at the time were making their first NBA Finals appearance. Karl Malone had won the MVP that year. That upset Michael. He said he called it motivation. To me, I call it being petty, but that's just me. But he felt that, he was being slighted out of the MVP, so he was definitely motivated to want to beat the Utah Jazz. And as y'all know, the Bulls definitely embarrassed Utah for the first couple of games. Well, just had to get something. Well, not the first couple of games. The Bulls had to definitely battle with Utah the first two games. Then the Jazz, came home and took care of business in both games, especially in game 4 when John Paxson hit a clutch shot to really ice that game 4. But then they went into detail on the classic flu game that Jordan played. And now over the years, people have speculated that Jordan was drinking and gambling the night before. That's just speculation. We don't know. And he recalled that, a pizza being delivered to his hotel room, and he said it was 5 guys there. Now, as I was watching the documentary, I asked myself, why the hell would 5 guys deliver a pizza? Unless it was just a pizza like from wall to wall that you had to carry into the room, and it was just, heavy loaded with cheese and other toppings. But other than that, it doesn't take 5 guys to deliver a pizza. So that's just, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying, just shaking, just make me shake my head. Or as Arceo Hall used to say back in the day, things that make you go, But anyways, Jordan ate the pizza and he ended up getting sick. And they interviewed his personal trainer as well as assistant. And they said basically Jordan was weak. He spent the whole day in bed instead of practicing. As a matter of fact, his mom recalled in her interview that, she wasn't even sure if Michael was going to play that game or not, but he decided to play, being the competitor that he is. And, starting out the game, the Jazz came out on fire. They were up by double digits at one point, but Michael Jordan just took over in that second quarter and is just killing it. Hitting all kinds of shots, going to the hole. You wouldn't have thought that was a man that was sick. Not at all. but you can tell in that game, man, Jordan was just basically done. That man was just, sweating. He could barely just stand up. He was fatigued, dehydrated. You could just tell that he was just playing on films in that game. But as y'all all know, he ended up scoring 38 points in that game to give the Bulls that 3-2 lead heading back to the United Center in Chicago to try to close it out for their 5th NBA title. Excuse me. But also in that episode, Jordan recalled Brian Russell, talking a little bit of smack to him. Jordan was out of the game playing baseball, and he asked him, "Why did you quit? Why did you quit? I could have guarded. I would have guarded your ass if you were still playing." So, Jordan remembered that, and he hit that shot over Brian Russell in game 1, the buzzer beater. Now, excuse me, game 6, Michael and Steve Kerr, relived the play in game 6 where the game was tied and how it was set up for Steve Kerr to get open to hit the go-ahead shot. So, Michael told Phil, instead of just, letting him take over, give it to Kerr because they were gonna double team him. And Steve Kerr just basically told Michael that, hey, I'm gonna be open. So, coming out on the court, the Jazz did double team Michael once he got the ball. He kicked it out to Kerr, and Kerr hit that go-ahead shot at the top of the key to give the Bulls the 2-point lead in the final seconds of the game. But the Jazz, they still had to score to win the game and try to force a game 7. But Scottie Pippen's steal and alley-oop to Kukoc, sealed the game and sealed the 5th championship for the Chicago Bulls. Excuse me. Like I said, the most of the documentary went back and forth between, the 97 championship and the 98 Eastern Conference Finals. Now, the documentary, this episode also delved into Steve Kerr's background. Now, most of y'all may not know, Steve Kerr, was recalling how he fell in love with basketball, and he started playing basketball when he was very young. He remembered going to games with his dad, as a kid at UCLA because his father was a professor there. Excuse me. And they also interviewed Steve Kerr's mother, and she recalled how he and his brothers would be competitive, having games in the garage. Well, not in the garage, but in the driveway all the time, and it would just be competing against each other. And he also recalled how he wasn't really, when he was in high school, he wasn't a highly recruited player. He remembered a lot of college scouts did not look at him. He said he had the same amount of scouts looking at him in high school as almost the same amount of girls he got in high school. And I got love for Steve Kerr, but looking at those pictures of him in high school, I could kind of see why he didn't get a lot of girls, because Steve Kerr looked like a straight up nerd. You wouldn't have thought he played basketball, any kind of sports. So yeah, I see why Steve Kerr kind of got that reaction that he did. But it also talked about his father, who, like I said, was a college professor, and also was a diplomat, because he went over there to Beirut, to teach school over there. And ultimately in 1984, 2 men came door of where he was, and they ended up just killing him, shooting him in the head, which was, man, that was just straight up tragic. And Steve Kerr recalled relive, and had to relive the day that he was told by a friend of his father's that his father was killed over in Beirut. Which, that's very sad, and that's just a sad thing to relive, just to relive. Excuse me. So, definitely Steve Kerr broke down as he brought up that memory, which I can understand, because I can definitely relate to that, reliving something that tragic. So I can't blame Steve Kerr on that one. Now, as far as the NBA, at first Steve Kerr wasn't really, finding his footing in the NBA. He had played with Phoenix at first, but then he ultimately got traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he said that's where he really started to find his footing in the NBA as a player. Yeah, a lot of y'all don't know. Steve Kerr did play for the Cavs, and he played for the Cavs for about 4 or 5 seasons before going over to the Bulls. And Steve Kerr was a pretty good shooter when he was playing here in Cleveland on those Cavs teams back in the day. And he said, he basically knew Michael's game and rhythm by, watching him on TV as, he would prepare to play against him when he was a member of the Cavs. So he felt like he and Michael Jordan would fit in very, just fit in instantly. And the interviewer also asked Steve Kerr, did he and Michael Jordan talk about, their fathers? And he said no, because it would be too painful for both of them. And it's just messed up that both of them lost their fathers in a violent way. That was just very tragic. But the rest of the rest of the episodes, go to the last few games. And on game 7, they were talking about how, reminiscing on Michael Jordan's personal bodyguard named Gus. He was an older gentleman who had started out working at the United Center, and he worked his way up to being the lieutenant of security at the United Center. So, after a while, Michael Jordan just hired him to be on his security team and being the head of his security. But it was found out later on in the episode through Gus's wife that Gus was battling cancer, and she recalled how Michael Jordan was there every time he was in the hospital, always visiting with him, always visiting with her. And she also recalled that how Gus was there for Michael Jordan when his father was murdered. And also, in a lot of ways, Michael Jordan looked at Gus as a father figure, after his father had passed, because Jordan said he wanted to be around older gentlemen to help him make good, sound decisions, and they will be a great influence on him. So game 7 came. He was very motivated to win that game for Gus. As a matter of fact, before game 7 at the press conference, Michael Jordan guaranteed to win. So he was definitely driven to win that game for Gus. As Gus, despite being in poor health and frail, he did show up to game 7 to support, Michael Jordan and to root on the Chicago Bulls. And at the end of game 7, the game ball went to Gus, which I think that was a great gesture by the whole Bulls staff to do that for him. And ultimately, Gus passed away in 2000 after, losing his battle with cancer, as they dedicated that episode in his memory. Excuse me. So, after battling the Indiana Pacers for 7 games, the Bulls were back in the NBA Finals for the 3rd year in a row, for the 6th time in franchise history. Now, on to episode 10 is the 98 finals, where, they beat the Utah Jazz again for the second year in a row. Now, the Jazz had came back more new, more improved, more experienced, more battle tested. After going through that finals run in 97, the Jazz players and the Jazz fans were very confident that they were going to finally break through, get their redemption, and win that series, which I couldn't have blamed them. They had the home court advantage. As a lot of people may not know that the Bulls and the Jazz finished with the same records that year, but since the Jazz swept the Bulls during the regular season, they ultimately won the tiebreaker. So, Jazz felt very confident. They which they should have been. Definitely can't blame them. They were very hungry, and they wanted to get rid of that bad taste in their mouth that they left, that they had the year before. So at the beginning of episode 10, they showed the Bulls, in shoot around about 6 hours before tip off. Now, the Bulls just got through battle with the Pacers. They basically had to go from Chicago to Utah in about at least a 28 to between basically a 24 to 48 hour span, from Chicago to Utah, because they had to definitely make a quick turnaround and travel to Utah to start that series. So, they showed the Bulls in practice and shoot around. Michael Jordan was attempting shots, and basically they were recalling how Michael Jordan does not think about failure because he just stays in the moment. It's like, why think about a shot or about missing a shot that you haven't even taken yet? So that, basically explain MJ's whole demeanor. Excuse me. Now they show game 1 of the finals, in which the Jazz ultimately held on to beat the Bulls to take that 1-0 lead. But then the Bulls come back and they win a close game 2 to tie the series. Now, game 3, man, game 3 was embarrassing. This was like the first time in the shot clock era where a team was held to 54 points, as the Bulls embarrassed the Jazz by beating them 96. Because how do you hold a team to 54 points? I mean, dang, at least most teams these days can at least get to 80 or even 90 points. But the Jazz could even get to 70? Wow. That's just crazy. That's very bizarre that they couldn't, get, that they couldn't even get to, score that many points. And then the Bulls won a close game 4 to take that 3-1 lead. And the Chicago Bulls fans were ready to celebrate. They were ready for the coronation at home once again. But the Jazz, they ended up shocking the Bulls by beating them 83-81. Now, Antoine Carr was the man in that game because he hadn't really played much that whole series, and he hadn't really done much. But, Jerry Salone made a move, called his number, and he just stepped up. And, man, he was just knocking just about everything down like it wasn't nothing. Now, game 6, that classic game 6, man, that had just about everything that you wanted in the NBA Finals game. It was so, back and forth, twists, turns, drama. The Jazz, they came out in that first half, just, guns, just scoring, balling. But there was also a controversial call where a 3 that was made, well, they thought a 3 was made by Stockton, but they downgraded to a 2. So that play, so some people definitely thought that played a factor in the game. But also, during the game, Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone ended up bumping and banging all over the floor for a loose ball. Now, also earlier in the documentary, in the previous episode, Dennis Rodman disappeared, for the practice for game 4 to, to appear on a WCW episode in in Auburn Hills with Hulk Hogan and all those dudes at the time when they were doing their thing as NWO. And that was just straight up crazy how Dennis Rodman just said that didn't tell anybody that he was gonna, do this show, and he just disappeared. He didn't tell Phil, Krause, or nobody. He just, went and left. So that was an unexcused absence, and he ended up being fined. And also, the meat they showed an old clip of the Bulls assistant media relations rep wanting Dennis to do an interview with him, but he did not want to talk to the media because basically got reprimanded by the Bulls and got fined. So Dennis Rodman sneaks out the back, runs up the stairs, gets in his truck, and just rolls out of the arena. Man, that was pretty funny to see, man, because Dennis Rodman was gone. That man was just straight up gone. And actually, I kind of got to give props to Dennis for that, because nowadays he wouldn't be able to get away with that, man. People would be recording, that on their cell phones, trying to sell that to TMZ or to whatever news outlet or blog that wants to buy it. So, got to give Dennis props for that one. Now, back to game 6. Now, Scottie Pippen also was battling back soreness in that game, because he took a lot of charges, especially that previous year. And, he started to have back issues around 96, 97, but these back issues were definitely taking their toll on him, as he had to go out of the game a couple of times to go back into the locker room to be treated for that back by medical staff. So, despite having his back issues, though, Scotty definitely, played a huge part in that game, as, man, he was scoring, dishing out the ball. Scotty had a pretty nice game in that game 6. And, for the most part, Michael Jordan, he had a pretty nice game, but it's like he didn't impact the game at first. He had like 20-something points in the first half, but they were more a quiet 20-something points. You get what I'm saying? And also, Dennis Rodman, who wasn't known as a shooter, he hit a jumper, which that was a trip. So, the Bulls, clawing, scratching, chipping away at the lead, especially in the second half and in that fourth quarter. Excuse me. Phil, calls a play for Michael to get his shot off, as he ends up going to the hole, scoring that layup to cut it down to 1. And, Michael says in his interview that, we just needed a stop. So Dennis Rodman, is guarding Karl Malone while he's in the post. And Malone is so focused on Rodman that Michael Jordan, sneaks up on him from the weak side to steal the ball. So now the question was asked, will there be a game 7 or will it be championship number 6? And Dennis Rodman said that in that moment, Michael Jordan wasn't going to pass the ball to him, John Paxson, or Steve Kerr. It was his moment. So, Jordan basically steps up to the plate and hits the shot to give the Bulls the lead. Now, a lot of people debate whether it was an offensive foul on Brian Russell. Did he push off to get that, to get that shot? That's been debated over the last 22 years. In a way, offensive foul. That's just my opinion. But folks like Bob Costas and others said in their interviews, they said, well, Brian Russell momentum was already, causing him to fall, so it wasn't an offensive foul. But like I just said, that's still debatable. So the Bulls had to get one more stop, and the Jazz went to Paxson. Paxson tried to attempt the three, but Ron Harper partially blocked Stockton. And, time ran out as the Jazz tried to put up a desperation shot, and the Bulls clinched their 6th NBA championship in 8 years, their second three-peat. Michael got his 6th Finals MVP. Now, earlier in the documentary, they also interviewed, his 3 kids from his first marriage with Juanita, and his son said that, they wanted to go to Utah for that series, but their mom told them they can't go because it was too hostile. That was too much of a hostile arena to be in. So they had to stay at home. Excuse me. And, they also showed the Bulls, of course, celebrating in the locker room, dousing each other with champagne. And then the Chicago media asked Jerry Krause, could the Bulls come back for another year? He just said, I don't want to talk about that right now. I just want to enjoy the moment. And a lot of people definitely just enjoyed the moment. The Bulls got on the bus, after they got done celebrating the championship. And, Michael said, well, hey, it's still daylight. Maybe we can get a few golf swings in. Karl Malone came on the bus to congratulate the Bulls, on their championship before their bus pulled out. And a lot of Michael Jordan fans, Chicago Bulls fans were just crowding the bus outside the arena and at the hotel. Then they showed Michael Jordan, playing the piano, holding the trophy. And they also showed various clips of other players with the trophy, including Dennis Rodman with Carmen Electra, who was his wife at the time. So, a lot of people were anxious to know, will the Bulls be back for another year to try to go for a seventh NBA championship? And, Michael Jordan took the Phil Jackson approach to basically stay in the moment, not think about the future, just focus on what's ahead right now. But as we all know, you can't stay in that moment forever. You got to come off of that moment. So they showed the Bulls championship parade in Chicago's Grant Park. You love going to Grant Park. That's a very nice park. And, they show Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson, and Scottie Pippen's speeches. And, as Jordan said, no matter what happens, my heart will always be in the city of Chicago. Phil Jackson now, saying his famous, well, this was the last dance and it was a wonderful waltz. Thank you all. You know what? And, I've watched their championship parade over the last, couple of years. All 3 of them were basically saying goodbye to Chicago, saying thank you for supporting us, Bulls fans, but this is it. This run is over. Excuse me. And it was. Now, I know a lot of Bulls fans at the time didn't want to believe it because, they became spoiled. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but, when you win for so long, you get so used to it. You get so used to it, you do get spoiled. Heck, ask any Patriots fan, who just saw Tom Brady leave. Hey, they got so they definitely been spoiled these last 19, 20 years. So, a lot of Bulls fans didn't want to believe that that team was going to break up, that that team was going to stay together forever. But hey, like the old saying goes, all good things must come to an end. So, at the end, Phil Jackson, you know, says that Jerry Reinsdorf, the Bulls owner, called Phil and talked to him and asked him about coming back, to coach for at least another season. But Phil Jackson turned down Reinsdorf's offer and just said he wanted to take a break, which Phil did take a little break, but then, he quickly ended up going to LA to coach the Lakers and, with Shaq and Kobe, and then just Kobe later on. And he won 5 championships with them. And then they asked Jerry Reinsdorf, why did the team break up? And he said that the team broke up because of money. And, basically Jerry Reinsdorf was just basically saying that he was not going to pay, buku money to Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, Steve Kerr, Ron Harper, and to all of them. That's why I said in my Bulls 8 straight championships video that I don't think the Bulls could have won 8 straight because of money. And Steve Kerr said this on a episode of ESPN's Top 5 Reasons back in the day, which was detailing why, Jerry Krause shouldn't have been blamed for the breakup of the Bulls. Steve Kerr said that if that team would have been together, then that would have been a $110 million salary. So there would have been no flexibility for the team to improve and, to build. That would be hard to have a $110 million payroll trying to go for another championship. So, Jerry Reinsdorf said that, the Bulls wouldn't have been able to, give all those players what they were worth that they couldn't get in free agency. So then the director gives Michael Jordan the iPad to see Jerry Reinsdorf's response to the question he asked why the team broke up. And Jordan felt that, Jerry Reinsdorf and the front office didn't even try to keep that team together, in which they should have. They should have kept the team together. He said, they could have, why they just didn't tell them that, at the beginning of the 97-98 season, or why not just, bring guys on 1-year contracts, for that season, then, go back the next season and renegotiate like players like Kerr and Harper. But and I also asked this question in my live stream. Why didn't Jordan try to modify his contract to keep the team together? You wanted to win all these championships, just playing devil's advocate here. You talking about dudes like Kerr and Ron Harper. Why didn't you modify your contract to make sure the team stayed together so y'all can keep on winning? It's just something to think about. But excuse me, but before the team, finally broke up and just went their separate ways, Phil had all the players from that team meet with each other, and he had them write on a piece of paper of what the team meant to them, and then they read it out loud to each other, and they burned it in a coffee can, which I thought that was pretty interesting. That was pretty cool. And Steve Kerr recalled how compassionate Michael Jordan was when he read his response. Because a lot of them viewed him as a bully at the time, but he said that day he was just so compassionate and just showed his love for him. Excuse me. And Michael Jordan said that, that team, that they would definitely always be, banded together. And they will always be connected, which is true, because they did win six championships. Everyone from the first three-peat and everyone from the second three-peat will always be forever intertwined and connected with each other, due to the success that they had throughout throughout the whole 90s. And that's remarkable to win 6 championships in almost a decade. Even though I still don't think they would have won 8 in a row. But after the team disbanded, as like I said, Phil went to LA, won 5 championships with Shaq and Kobe. Then Michael Jordan retired for a little bit, went to the Wizards for a few years. Scottie Pippen was signed and traded to the Houston Rockets. Dennis Rodman was released. He played a couple of more years before he finally retired. Steve Kerr ultimately got traded to San Antonio and won 2 more rings as a player. And after that, he was an analyst on TNT for a long time, which I definitely like Steve Kerr as an analyst, man. That he was a great analyst. He was. And then, he stepped into the front office role as GM of the Phoenix Suns. Then he ultimately became the coach of the Golden State Warriors, where he's won 3 championships as a coach. Beat my Cavs. Boo! I love Steve Kerr, but I hate him at the same time. But man, this documentary, it was a pretty good documentary. It was very interesting. It was eye-opening to some things, There were some things we already knew, but we also learned some new things as well. So, shout out to the director. His name is Jason Hare. I hope I said his name right. For doing a pretty good job of putting this whole series together, especially in the short time period that he had. We got great interviews, great perspectives from just about everybody, the Bulls players, also their opponents. But the only thing I did not like about this documentary, it seemed like they tried to make Scottie Pippen look bad, which he shouldn't have looked bad, because look, that man definitely deserved a better deal than what he got back in 91. After say the 3rd championship or that 93 and 94 season, Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf should have sat down with Scottie to talk a new deal, because 93, 94, Scottie had an MVP caliber year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And they did not want to pay that man what he's worth. Now, I could understand taking the deal at first because, Scottie had a family to take care of. His father was disabled. His brother was disabled. So, and he comes from a large family. So, he wanted to take care of them. So, they could move around a little bit more around the house, get out the house to, just do whatever. So I can understand. But after a while, Scottie became an all-star, he was at least first in all, on the NBA, all NBA defensive team. And he helped the Bulls win 3 consecutive championships at that time. They should have gave Scottie a better contract. It's a shame that Scottie was like the 122nd most paid player in the NBA at that time, especially in 97, 98. Come on. Scottie was making role player money. Okay? That's somebody that's money you pay to, a role player, like a guy that's deep on the bench. Not no NBA superstar or even an all-star. Excuse me again. And also, Scottie was the sixth most paid player on the team. That means Jordan, Ron Harper, Steve Kerr, Dennis Rodman, and Tony Kukoc all were making more money than Scottie Pippen at that time. So it's just messed up how they made him look, just tried to make him look bad. And with the and also with the playoff game against the Knicks. I kind of, felt Scottie's frustration on how, Phil Jackson wouldn't even give him a chance to, be the hero in that game, that he just wanted to go straight to Tony Kukoc. At that time, that was his team and he was the man. He should at least had an opportunity to win the game. At least let him be the first option. If that broke down, then go to somebody like Kukoc, as I said in my previous live stream. So, it's just a shame how in some ways they made Scottie Pippen look. And he definitely did not deserve to be, painted that way in this documentary. As a matter of fact, there have been a lot of reports that said that Scottie Pippen was frustrated with how he was betrayed in this documentary, and I don't blame him. Excuse me. And also, a lot of his teammates threw him under the bus in this documentary. Michael, John Paxton, Bill Winnington, and even Phil, threw Scottie under the bus. And, Scottie seemed like he was a hard worker. He just showed up to work, did what he was supposed to do. And a big part of winning those championships. If it wasn't for him, Michael wouldn't have 6 rings, or he would just have, say, maybe 2 or 3 rings. You know what I'm saying? Excuse me. So, yeah, Scottie definitely deserved better representation in this documentary because, let's be real, after the Bulls lost game 1 of that 91 finals, guess what? Scottie decided to take on the responsibility of guarding Magic. And that's what turned the series around. So if Scottie doesn't take the onus upon himself to guard Magic, then, maybe the Bulls don't have these 6 banners hanging at the United Center in Chicago. But I got to get up off of here, y'all. I just wanted to come on here real quick to, give my recap of episodes 9 and 10 of The Last Dance. It's been fun doing these live streams with y'all. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. Excuse me. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Don't make me a last. Subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell. Click all so you don't miss any new videos from me. Once again, I appreciate y'all for coming on here with these live streams with me. Leaving your comments, even if they are negative, like the ones I got last night. I just appreciate just all of y'all being on here with me, because hey, without y'all, there be no me, there be no talking and grubbing media. So I'm just thankful that y'all just love to, see me on here talking sports, eating some good food. And, I enjoy doing all this for y'all. So y'all join me at 8 o'clock as me and Jay Moore Reviews is going to do our series recap. It's going to be good. So till then, y'all have a good one. Love y'all to life. QC out, and I'll see y'all later.